Good evening. So the other day we were discussing the disagreement between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, whereas according to Beis Shammai, the first night of Chanukah you're supposed to light 8 candles and then each night subtract one. And Beis Hillel says the opposite. You start the first night with 1 candle, and then each subsequent day you increase the number of candles. And Beis Shammai said, why do I say that each day you should do fewer candles than the day before? So Beis Shammai said that it's similar to the sacrifices that are brought on the holiday of Sukkos, where each day the number of bulls that are brought goes down. So we need to understand what is the comparison between lighting Hanukkah candles and bringing bulls on the holiday of Sukkos, and why does Beis Hillel feel that it's not a comparison? So the Shem MiShmuel wants to explain as follows. He says that when we bring the bulls on Sukkos, it's an illusion that the Umos Ha'olam, those who are opposed to the Jewish people, were bringing those sacrifices on the one hand for their protection, but at the same time, each day we bring fewer and fewer sacrifices because we want their forces and their power that opposes the Jewish people to diminish each and every single day. In the same way, he says that the power of the Syrian Greeks who opposed the Jews at the time of Chanukah was their belief in the superiority of the sciences over all else. Now, the fact of the matter is, understanding mathematics, understanding sciences are of extreme importance. And even simply, if someone wants to spend and devote his whole life just to the study of Torah, but you're really not going to get any place if you don't understand math and you don't understand science, if you don't understand the simple realities of the basics of how the world works. So the issue that we have with their approach was not the fact that they were studying science, not the fact that they were studying math and philosophy, but it was the fact that they believed that the only things that were important, the only things that were real, are those things that they could discern with their senses. And anything which they could not discern with their senses, as far as they were concerned, did not exist. And that's why they rejected all forms of spirituality, first and foremost, the Torah. So it was that hubris, that gaiva that they had, that they felt that they could be the arbiters of determining what was real in existence and what wasn't. That is what we as Jewish people are opposed to. And we wanted to have the opportunity to let the shine of the splendor of the Torah, of the spirituality of Hashem, to have an opportunity to shine forth. Therefore, the Shem MiShmuel explains that Beis Shammai is of the opinion that on the first day we light 8 candles, because with each passing day we are trying to diminish that gaiva, that hubris. So the first day we light 8 candles because there's so much of that gaiva, we need all the light in order to oppose it. The next day we need a little bit less light in order to fight against that gaiva. And so on. It continues day after day. The amount of light we need diminishes as the gaiva on the other side diminishes as well. On the other hand, the opinion of Beis Hillel is that as long as that gaiva, that hubris that the Yevanim represent is still around, then there's an inability for the light of Torah to shine through. And therefore, the first day of Chanukah, when we haven't yet successfully overcome that hubris completely, there's only enough light for one candle to shine. The next night, we've overcome it a little bit more, and there's enough light now for two candles to shine. Until by the end of Chanukah, we have managed to overcome that hubris completely, and then we can shine with the full gamut of 8 candles. Now, as we continue on in the Gemara says, Amar Rabba bar Barchana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabba bar Barchana said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Shnei Zekenim Hoyu B'Tzidon. In the city of Sidon, there were 2 elderly people. Echad Asa Kebei Shammai. In this disagreement as to the order of how you light the Chanukah candles, one of them followed the opinion of Beis Shammai. Ve'echad Asa Kedivrei Beis Hillel, and the other one went in accordance with the opinion of Beis Hillel. So we've got a question over here. First of all, normative halacha is always in accordance with Beis Hillel as opposed to Beis Shammai. And therefore, why was there this one elderly person in Sidon who in this case decided to go follow the opinion of Beis Shammai? That would seem to be against normative halacha. And the Ritva explains, and so does the Or Zarua, that which we always rule like Beis Hillel instead of Beis Shammai, that's when we're talking about the actual halacha itself. But over here, when we're talking about someone who wants to light a different number of candles every single night, so as we discussed the last time, that's not really an essential part of the halacha. Lighting more than one candle on any given night is already part of the mahadrin or the mahadrin min mahadrin. It's a way of beautifying the mitzvah. And so when we rule always like Beis Hillel instead of Beis Shammai, that's when it comes to a mitzvah itself. When it comes to something which is merely beautifying a mitzvah, but is not an essential part of the mitzvah, in that case, we can go in accordance with Beis Shammai as well. I saw also that the Chidah says, in the name of the Arizal, that in Messianic times, we are always going to rule like Beis Shammai and not like Beis Hillel. Nowadays, as we said, the halacha is usually like Beis Hillel, but in Messianic times, the halacha will be like Beis Shammai and not like Beis Hillel. And therefore, since the light of Chanukah is the essence of the hidden light, which will be revealed in Messianic times, that's why if somebody chooses, they are permitted in this particular case to follow the opinion of Beis Shammai rather than the opinion of Beis Hillel. Then the Gemara goes on, Tana Rabbanan. We learned in a brisa. I'm going to share with you something over here that's absolutely mind-blowing. Ner Chanukah, mitzvah lahanicha al Pesach beiso mibachutz. When it comes to Chanukah candles, the proper thing to do is to light it outside by the door of your house. Imhar yadar ba'aliyah, if you lived on a second story, meinicha, you should place the Chanukah lights b'chalon, in a window, hasmucha l'rishus harabim, which is facing the street. Ubishas sakana, but at a time when there is anti-Semitism, and therefore placing your Chanukah candles in whether in front of your house or by your window, and passersby will see it, and it might cause that you'll get attacked. Manicha al shulchano, then you should just place your menorah or your Chanukah on your table, vidayo, and that is sufficient. So we see in the Gemara over here 3 options about where to place your Chanukah candles. Either by the door to your house, outside, or in your window facing your street, or on your table. So the Sefer Limudim B'Nissim, first of all, points out that each one of these phrases about where to put your candles, each has the letter ches in it. There's Pesach Beso, the door of your house. There's Chalon, the window. And Shulchan, the table. They each have the letter ches. But he says something else. He says in the word Pesach, doorway, the ches is at the end of the word, at the bottom of the word, because you only light them in your doorway if you live on the bottom story. The Gemara said if you live on a second story, you do it in the chalon. So over there, the ches is at the top of the word because you're lighting only if you live upstairs. And the third option is to light them in the middle of your house on your shulchan, on your table. And that's why over there, the ches is in the middle of the word. Then it goes on to say that there's another allusion to this as well. When it comes to the wording of the bracha that we make upon lighting the Chanukah candles, so some say lahadlik ner shel Chanukah, and others say lahadlik ner Chanukah. And he explains what's the distinction between whether or not we have the word shel over there in the bracha. And he mentions that in the Gemara there is a disagreement about whether or not while your Chanukah candles are burning, are you permitted to utilize the light for your own purposes? Let's say you want to read a book and the Chanukah lights are burning. Are you allowed to use the Chanukah light in order to read your book? One opinion says it's okay. One opinion says that it's forbidden. So he says, for the one who says that you're allowed to use the light even for other purposes, in that case, the light of your Chanukah candles is not only for Chanukah. And therefore, it's a ner, it's a candle. Shel Chanukah, the reason why you're lighting it is because of Chanukah, but it's a candle in its own right, and that's why you can use it for your own needs. The opinion who says you cannot use the light, he says, no, it's a ner Chanukah. It's specifically a Chanukah candle, and it's only for Chanukah and not for anything else. And therefore, he says as follows. If you take your Chanukah candles and you put them just outside the doorway of your home, then it's very clear that the purpose of lighting those candles is not to provide light for your home. So it's very clear that you're just doing it for the mitzvah. And that would be lahadlik ner Chanukah. And he says that the numerical value, the gematria of the words lahadlik ner Chanukah is the same numerical value as lepesach, by the doorway. If you live upstairs, then we said that you should put it by your window. Well, putting the candles by the window also shows that you're not using the candles for yourself, but only for the mitzvah. And again, alluded to in the words lahadlik ner Chanukah. And if you take a look at the first letters of that phrase, lahadlik is a lamid, ner is a nun, Chanukah is a ches, that spells out the word chalon, a window. And he says also that's why it is the first letters of each of those words, because again, like we said beforehand, since the chalon is upstairs, the letters are the top letters of each word. And finally, we said that if it's dangerous to put your Chanukah candles in a place where others can see it, you should just light them on your table. Now, once you're lighting it on your table, someone could certainly get the impression that you're lighting it for your own use, that you're lighting it like the opinion that says that you're allowed to use the Chanukah candles for yourself. and that would then connect to lahadlik ner shel Chanukah. And again, if you take the first letters of that phrase, lahadlik ner shel Chanukah, lamed nun shin ches, you rearrange them, you get the word shulchan, a table. Thank you very much for listening. Have a very good evening and a wonderful second night of Chanukah.